Hi everyone, this is Brian Hayes and welcome to an introduction to the electric guitar. I'm going to assume in this tutorial that you are completely new to the electric guitar, and I'm going to be using this famous iconic Gibson ES345-TD guitar to take you through the design concepts that make an electric guitar quite different to their acoustic guitar cousins. This is the first professional series instrument I ever purchased. As a multi-instrumentalist, I nowadays own rooms full of great quality instruments. However, back in 1971, when I purchased this instrument new, it was an outrageous commitment for a school kid. The guitar cost around about $1,700 Australian at the time, and to put that in perspective, you could buy a very decent second-hand car in Australia in 1971 for $600. But I note on eBay today, just before I record this video, that guitars similar to this exact guitar are currently selling for in excess of $20,000 US on eBay if they're in mint condition. So I think overall it's proven to be a wise business decision. Okay. So what makes an electric guitar different from an acoustic guitar? Let's focus first of all on a few of the features specific to the ES345-TD Gibson. First of all, the model number. ES stands for Electric Spanish Guitar. Gibson used that concept for many years to differentiate these style of guitars and their fatter bodied jazz cousins from the solid body electric guitar lines that Gibson became very famous for, particularly the Les Paul series guitars and later on the SGs and a whole range of solid body guitars. So ES stands for Electric Spanish. TD, the T stands for thin line, and if you have a look at this guitar, it's noticeably thinner body thickness wise than your conventional acoustic guitar. It's what's called a semi-acoustic guitar, and that just simply means that if I strum the strings, whilst it's very quiet, if I did the same thing as I did there on a full solid body guitar, you virtually wouldn't hear anything. You just hear a tiny little scratch in the background. This guitar has a solid piece of timber running down the centre of it here, so it's semi-acoustic. You notice it's got the violin style F holes on either side of the guitar, and that gives this guitar a unique balance between the phenomenal sustain of the best of the solid body guitars but also the warmth of an acoustic guitar. And this series guitar became iconic and famous with many of the world's best guitar players like B.B. King, Larry Carlton, Lee Ritenour, Chuck Berry, Elvin Bishop, Eric Clapton. The list just goes on and on. Just about anyone who's anyone in the guitar playing field has at one stage or another owned, performed, recorded on one of these guitars. Now, one of the design features that is instantly obvious on this electric guitar and on many electric guitars is this very deep cutaway. This guitar features a double cutaway, and that just means that you can get your fingers right down to the very last frets, both up here on the bass side and on the treble side of the guitar, without any impairment whatsoever. This guitar is particularly good for that. This has 22 frets on it. The ES345 has 22 frets, which means the highest note that you can play is D above high D, double high D. So that's D one full octave higher than the D above the 5 lines in the music stave. A great feature of this particular guitar is also the seamless join of the neck to the body of the guitar at the back. Now, in another tutorial, we'll explore one of the world's other iconic guitar designs, and that's the Fender Stratocaster. And many of the solid body guitars have what they call a bolt-on neck. So right down here, just where your hand's trying to play those highest notes on the fretboard, you have a big, chunky, screwed-on, 4-screw bolt-on neck. This Gibson design is fantastic. It's completely smooth. The only thing on the back is the strap button, which doesn't get in the way, but there's absolutely nothing on the guitar to prevent you from playing up to the very highest notes on the guitar with probably more ease than on just about any other guitar design that you can find. So if you're in the market for a electric guitar, one of the great things to look for is a deep cutaway. The number of frets on the guitar is not all that important. Some guitars will stop at double high C, others at C sharp. This one stops at D, and others will take you up even another 2 frets so that you can play the full next octave up to the high E, double high E. Okay, common to most electric guitars that have 2 pickups installed, the Gibson ES345 has a 3-way toggle switch pickup selector. Now, the pickup here, closest to the bridge, is always going to give a brighter sound than the pickup closer to the neck. It's just one of the features of a guitar that if you strike a string very close to the bridge, you'll hear it's a very twangy sound. It's a very trebly sound. So this pickup is designed to have more of a biting lead guitar sort of sound to it. And the front pickup is located in a position that has a warmer, more of a rhythm guitar sound to it. The 3-way toggle switch simply lets you, in the up position, you are playing the front pickup only. And like most guitars, this guitar has a separate volume and tone knob based on a 0 to 10 dial, 0 being off, 10 being full volume. It doesn't have 11 on these knobs, even though I might demonstrate in a moment that it's certainly got the capacity to play beyond 10 in volume. But each pickup has its own separate volume and tone knob. So if I put the switch all the way down to the bottom, I'm now engaging the lead pickup, and these knobs down here, volume and tone for the lead pickup. If I put the switch in the middle, I've got a combination of the two, and this is where the separate volume controls come into play. Not all guitars nowadays have the separate pickup volume controls. I think it's important. If you're looking for a guitar, I think it's another great feature that you can decide, you can make the decision as to the balance between bass and treble, not only from the tone knobs on each pickup, but in the middle position, you can say, okay, I do want both pickups on, but I don't want the same volume out of both pickups. If you want the sound, if you want a combination of the two pickups, but you want less volume from the front pickup, well then just turn the volume down. So you get a really good mix between bass and treble between the two pickups, and you can make the decision on the balance between the two. A little unusual, and one of the things that differentiated the 345 from the 335 Gibson was the introduction of this 6-way toggle switch. Gibson called it the Veritone knob. And basically it just gives you another 6 different tone features preset. So it's sort of like 6 more adjustments, tone filters, to whatever sound you've already set up between your two pickups. Some people loved it, some people hated it. I never felt too strongly either way. Certainly I think the best position on the 3 out of the 6 positions on the Veritone for me was always position 3 to play rhythm. It had a really, a really great sound that would cut through on rhythm without being dominating. And certainly for full-on power lead, if you put it in the first position, it's almost like a booster of some sort if you're playing lead. This is your input jack where you plug the guitar into an amplifier, or as I will be doing in a moment, into a direct input box common in recording studios, a DI box where you can just plug it straight in. As you can see behind me here, I've got a variety of sound mixers, so I'll be plugging this guitar into a DI box and then into my recording software, and I'll let you hear what it sounds like through the recording system. However, if you're playing live through an amplifier, you just plug a guitar lead into that jack like you would on any other guitar. When Gibson introduced the 345, you might notice up the top there just near the nut of the guitar the word stereo. So I purchased this as the stereo option. They sold the 345 both in mono and stereo. Now, you know, back in the days when these guitars were released, it was a big thing to be able to play a guitar through two separate amplifiers. You know, nowadays, you know, guitar players, when they're performing, plug in about 20 amplifiers. But in the era of Chuck Berry and the start of rock and roll, it was a big thing for Chuck Berry to play on stage with two amplifiers. So he could not only have a different sound on his guitar, but he could have one amplifier set dry with no reverb and the other amplifier set more like a bass guitar amp, or whatever combination the player wanted. So Gibson sold the guitar with a stereo input jack and a special Switchcraft Gibson lead that had two outputs on the end of the lead. It split the actual output of the guitar into left and right. Personally, I never liked it, and one of the very few modifications I've had to this guitar, which I got done about 30 years ago, was to replace the stereo input on the guitar with the standard mono input. So it is a bit of a misnomer. I didn't change the nameplate up the top, but this is no longer a stereo guitar. If I want to do that nowadays, as I said in the recording studio here, I plug it into a DI box and instantly I can separate the outputs in a variety of ways nowadays using a different device than trying to do it right here at the guitar. But you've got to remember, this guitar came out in 1958. The ES345 first came out in 1958, and it was discontinued in 1981 when Gibson released the B.B. King Lucille series of guitars. So the Lucille B.B. King model replaced the ES345. And the Lucille model is very similar, but there are some differences. The F-holes were replaced and some differences in the tailpiece and the neck inlays, but the concept still being largely the same. Other features of this guitar, it has a floating scratch plate. So on an acoustic guitar, the scratch plate is glued onto the front of the guitar, and many people sort of think it deadens the acoustic guitar a bit, but I mean the other option is you just, you know, rip the front off your guitar where your pick will scratch the front of the guitar. Now that doesn't seem to worry people like Tommy Emmanuel, who deliberately scratches his guitar so he can play percussion at the same time on his acoustic, which is brilliant. However, this is a good design in that the scratch plate is completely floating off the top of the guitar. It's not glued onto the guitar. The other thing to look for in any electric guitar is the action. And the action is the distance that the string is raised up from the fretboard of the guitar. Now, this particular Gibson was well known for having one of the fastest guitar actions around, and still to this day, this is one of the fastest guitars I've ever played. By that I mean the action is very, very light. The neck is very true. The frets are, if you have a look at the frets, they're the low profile and wide frets. These are the original Gibson frets. I've had this worked on. I've had the frets redressed, but they are the original Gibson frets from this guitar that was built in 1967. This particular guitar is what the serial number says. So that's another testament to the quality of the materials used to still be on the same original set of frets, having played many miles with this guitar. So the combination of the low profile wide frets and the low action sets you up to be able to play some, you know, really fast playing on this guitar, and it's a guitar that you feel like you can just fly, your fingers can fly on. Okay, enough talking about it. Let's have a listen to what the ES345 sounds like in a playing situation. I hope you've enjoyed meeting my friend, the 1967 Gibson ES345-TD electric guitar. It truly is one of the iconic guitars in the history of music. As always, keep in touch via my website, www.brianhayes.biz, that's B-I-Z. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and drop me an email if you have any basic questions about the electric guitar. Bye for now.